Hi, I'm Jerry Brown from Musicmakers Kits in Minnesota, and welcome to my workshop here. I'm in my garage. This is my man cave, and I'm going to be building a harp today and showing you how to do the woodworking steps involved in that. And I'm going to start by talking about what kind of tools you should have in order to do a project like this. And we'll use a lot of normal household tools like a hammer, maybe a pliers, tape measure, some tape, masking tape I like. We use glue, woodworker's glue. This is Elmer's, and Titebond is just as good. It's the yellowish kind of woodworking glue. We will need a cordless drill, electric drill. You could use a hand drill, I suppose, if you don't have electricity, if you're out in the backwoods somewhere. But this is sure a nice way to make things go faster and easier. And then you'll need 2 screwdriver bits for your drill. We use 2 Phillips drivers. One is a number 1 size, and a number 2 size is more common, but you'll need both for this project eventually. And so make sure to get good fresh Phillips driver bits, because if you have old ones that are worn, you're going to have lots of trouble. You could use, of course, regular screwdrivers if you don't want to use a power drill for that. Just is a little harder and takes longer. Anytime we're doing gluing, I always like to have a nice damp rag handy, because glue is messy, and you don't want it on your fingers, because as you put it in, as you handle things, you're going to smear glue around on the wood. And it's nice to be able to just wipe it nice and clean on the instrument, as well as your workbench and your hands. So keep a fresh, clean, damp rag handy anytime you're gluing. Now we're going to need a bunch of sandpaper, various grits. Here's 100, here's 180, here's a 600 we'll use at the very end when we're sanding between coats of finish. But we use say the 80 to 100 grit for doing shaping, trimming off excess wood and so forth, and rounding things over. And then we use like a 180 or 200, 220 for smoothing. And then, as I say, we use that 600 when we're sanding between coats of varnish. And then another tool that's very helpful for sanding is an electric palm sander like this. They come in different brands and different shapes. Some are round like this, some are square, and they really do a nice job. They make sanding so much easier. Of course, if you don't have something like this, you'll just be doing a lot more scrubbing, you know, using that old elbow grease. And we'll tell you how to make some sanding blocks out of scraps of wood. You'll also use a scrap of wood, just anything like this, fairly long piece, for using as a drilling base, because we'll be drilling holes through the soundboard of your harp. And it's nice to not put the drill into your work table. Put it into scrap wood like this instead. And then finally, at the very end, we'll be doing some finishing. So you'll need some finish. Now, I'll talk more about that as we get to that point, but I wanted to point out that that is about the last part of this project, aside from stringing and tuning. Don't try to finish your wood ahead of time, because this kind of glue will not stick to a finished piece of wood. So you'll not be able to assemble the project if you put varnish on the wood first. We will get started on our project, and I'll lay out some parts here. It's very helpful to have sandpaper on a block of wood, and just wrapping it around the block is not very easy. You can try to staple it and so forth, but the best thing is to actually glue the sandpaper right to the face of the wood. And so I've got a couple of scraps of 1x4s here, and I'm going to take, I've cut some pieces of sandpaper. This one is 100 grit and this one's 180 grit, and I'm going to glue them to the wood. So I just use the woodworker's glue. Spread some out here. I'm going to make two separate blocks. You could put one grid on one side of the same block of one block and the other grid on the other side of the same block. But my blocks are kind of uneven on the back side. They've got some tapered parts there, so I thought, well, I'll just use two. So with the grit facing down, I press the wood onto the back of the sandpaper, and the glue, you can see, is squeezing out. I'm going to put the other one right on top of it. Well, I'll start here. Then I'll put it on top, and that way I can clamp them both at the same time. Put a heavy weight on it and let it dry for 15-20 minutes or so.